Good afternoon and welcome once again to the 2023 IHF Youth Coaches Education Week, where leading experts throughout the world of handball share their knowledge and experience over 7 days, 8 webinars. So tomorrow we will have 2 webinars. This currently is the only one for today. My name is Adrian Costeu. I'm a member of the IHF media team, and I will be your host throughout this week during all these webinars. Of course, we will talk a lot about particular situation in youth coaches in particular countries, but also as a whole to help everybody become better and better, and of course grow handball, which is the ultimate goal. To begin with, we would like to let you know that these sessions will be in English, but as you are already used to, we have translations available in French, Spanish, and Arabic. It's very easy to switch to your preferred language. You need to click the globe icon, the interpretation icon at the bottom of your Zoom app, choose the favorite language, and then of course click it, and you will hear the translation available. All these webinars, all these sessions fall under the umbrella of the IHF Education Center, which is available at ihfeducation.ihf.info. So ihfeducation.ihf.info. You can find all the webinars there, recorded on demand. You can watch them whenever you want. This is the second webinar of the IHF Youth Coaches Education Week, and we have a guest who you already know because he was present in the other education weeks. It's Claus Dalgaard-Hansen from Denmark, and the theme is talent discovery, talent sighting, and promotion in Norway. Claus, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and nice to be here again. Looking forward to talk about one of the topics that I really spend a lot of time on the past 20-25 years: talent discovery, talent sighting, and promotion. This time, I will start with the Norway, but also start to present myself.
Claus, sorry, you can press F5 so to go into the presentation mode if possible.
Yes, of course. Better now?
Better now, perfect. Thank you very much.
Like, then I go a little back, sorry. I have worked with the biggest talents in Denmark on male side for many years. Worked with a lot of generations, think from born around 1980 up until born 2002, and worked with 5 different youth national teams in Denmark, and also for a period of 7 years been the head of the talent development, working with strategy. Then also been a club coach, and from last year I began as head of talent development on male side in Norway, where I have the responsibility of the talent sighting and the strategy for all the work with the young talents on the male side from 14-15 years up until 20-21 years. I have had some works, and I think not to be praising myself, but I think one of the real issues here is to have the experience of working with the players for many years, seeing how many pathways there are for the players, from on the left side under 19 youth national team to a successful men's team at the Olympics in Rio. The thing is, if you dig into the winning team of Rio, you would find out that the players have a unique story, and I think it's very important to be aware of that we need to give them equal chances as individuals, and we have to treat them in different ways in order to give them a chance to get to the highest level. This is my agenda today. I will start with talking about a little broader the headlines in talent development, some highlights from my point of view. Then I will dig a little deeper into what talent is and how we work, give some new insights on what we have to be aware of when we are working with talent development, because we as coaches have a huge impact on the players, and we also have a lot of power. And it's so important that we try to be aware of where our blind spots are when we try to pick out and find the players for the future. Then I have digged a little deeper into some figures from this summer's tournaments, from European Open in Sweden, from IHF in Slovenia, and from the under-19 and under-21 World Championships. What I want to highlight is our awareness of working with both years in a youth national generation, and also you can see that some of the countries who have the best results also come with the oldest teams. Then I will try to give you an insight on how we are working in Norway, some of the strategic moves we have made the past year, and why we do as we do. And then I will give you 4 or 5 exercises. So it's also practically before I will say thank you for today, and hopefully I will be met by some questions, because I really like to hear what you think, and maybe have the opportunity to elaborate of some of the things I'm talking about. Let's start. What is talent development? Talent development in sport is an ongoing mutual adjustment between a young athlete and a dynamic and complex environment, both in and outside the sport. This I have picked from a Danish scientist, Christopher Henriksen, in his book Talent Environments in World Class. And I think it's important to highlight that we can't only look at the players, we also need to look at the player's environment, his or her school, the family, the tradition, the culture, and the culture in the club, and the culture in the federation. So there are a lot of things we have to be aware of in order to give the single talent the best opportunities to develop into world class. When you are a coach in talent development, I also highlighted this in June. For me, it's totally different of being a coach on a men's and all women's team on highest level, because of course there it's almost only about winning. But when you are working in talent development, it is very much about trying to give them the right competences, teach them the right things in the right way at the right time, so that they have a good development through a lot of years before they become seniors. So I consider myself as a catalyst for young, ambitious athletes. Right now we have a camp here in Norway, and we had a meeting with the under 6 born 2006, 2007 boys last night. and we were talking about that all the coaches in the staff, they are there for the athletes. The athletes are not there for the staff. We are the ones who should help the athletes. And all the decisions we make or I make has to be in favor of the athlete and the athlete in his situation. Then I also think it's very important that when we talk about identification of talents, it's not about making child stars, it's about developing senior athletes. Everything we do about identification, selection, should be about developing young players for senior athletes. That's what it's all about. Of course, it is motivating and it's interesting to win when you are a youth athlete, and it can give you a sense of where you are. But the most important thing is to win when you are an adult. What is talent and how do we work? What talent is an ongoing discussion, and it's been going on for thousands of years. A little historical scratch of the debate could be divided into three. There's been, especially formally, a tradition talking about the natural talent. It could be Mozart, who could do almost everything when he was 2 years old. But in sports, we also see some athletes who can make it look a lot easier than other talents, and this naturally movement or way of throwing the ball can of course give you an advantage, but natural talent is only an advantage until a certain point. It is not enough to become a world-class handball player. You have to combine it with a training talent. Normally, I would say that until 15, 16 years, you can be one of the best only by the natural talent. But when you are becoming in the middle of the teenage years, you need to focus more on your training, and you also need to focus more on training the right things. You also need to work with your physical training. And then there has been, from Anders Ericsson, a Swedish scientist, this idea about excellence, that you can become excellent at some things if you practice for 10,000 hours. But it's a mistake when you look into handball, because even if you look into some of the best players who are in the middle of their 30s now, I think almost none of them has been practicing 10,000 hours. Anders Ericsson was talking about musicians who are able to practice much more than a handball player. I think it's important to talk about practicing with high quality and with high intensity, and not for many hours. I think that could be the best thing to do. So we need to have a focus on quality and intensity, because when you practice handball, especially in the hall, you get a lot of physical contact, which means that you have to have some time resting to be ready for the next session or the next practice. Swimmers can have much more hours of practice because they don't have the same physical challenges being met by an opponent. Then the third issue, or the first thing here, paradigm you could call it, is the context talent, to talking about that talent is also being good at the right things. And in handball, I believe you can see a difference about what can make you a good youth player and a good senior player. So it's important that we, in talent development in handball, talk about competences and not only qualifications. We also have changing of rules the last years that also shows us how important it is that we are able to change our systems and change the way we develop players in order to manage to play 7 against 6 or 6 against 7, and also now playing with the fast throw off. These are examples of how our game is always changing, and in our identification of talents, we have to be aware of this. There are many challenges when we talk about talent identification, but I think the most important thing is that we can only see the player's current level. This means that a lot of the talent identification we are doing is on performance. And this means it is very hard to predict the future. For me, it means that we have to stay humble, that we as coaches must be aware that it's hard for us to predict the future. It's for me, being in a culture with a lot of handball players, having the privilege, both in Denmark and in Norway, that we have a lot of players to pick from, that it's very hard to predict, even though they are 16, 17, 18 years old, who will be the best. So we need to keep as many players motivated for as long time as we can. Because if we pick players too early, it could start a problematic chain reaction. It could start early specialization, which could give a burnout for the players if they train too much too early in the same sport, but it could also give injuries. We have to be aware that early selection could cut friendships, and for a lot of people going to team sports, friendships means a lot. The cooperation that you have with your teammates is for a lot of handball players motivating. And it also could give them a lack of patience. Especially I see it these years that some of the young players, they have a lack of patience. They are not able to wait to get their chance. So when they go from youth handball to senior handball, if they haven't made it to the best team or to a professional league, they stop very early. I really think it's a pity, because in handball you have so many years to develop your game and to become better. So even though you haven't reached the highest level when you are 21, 22, 23, you still have a chance if you work. There are different ways that we can look into talent development. I will present for you some thoughts and ideas from a quite new Danish book who has just been translated into English, and it's talking about coaches or organizations, federations that are goal diggers or goal creators. If you are a goal digger, then you are you are interested in the player's performance right now. How do they play? How many goals do they make? You are also looking at their current competences. How can they fit into my team? How can they fit into the youth national team? Are the things they are working with right now something we can benefit from on a short term? You try to look very objective into the players and not looking for the future or for the potential. And you also look maybe too much on the natural talent, the player who can make it look very, very easy right now. On the other hand, there are coaches who are goal creators, and they are interested in some other stuff. The goal creator is not only looking at the player's current level, but also looking into the player's potential. How good can he become? How good can she become if they continue working? They also look into long-term past and long-term future. They try to make a plan for the player for some years, but they also, if they have a player of 15, 16 years, they are also looking back, trying to find out how much handball have they played? Have they played other sports? Have they been in a big club? So how much potential are there left to get out of the player? So they don't only look at the player right now to get result with the player, but they try to make a plan for the player who can help them into the future by understanding their past. They try to look at the player's competences in relation to context. This means, do they have some of the competences that are important in international handball right now? For me, this could be defense. Are they having competences in both defense and offense? In my mind, we have to be so much aware of that right now because of the fast pro-off. It has become harder to change from defense to offense. So we need more players that are able to have a high level, both in defense and offense. So that is a competence. I also believe for backcourt players that it's so important that they have a strong shot, because if you have a strong shot, then you are able to get the attraction of one of the defenders. And if they come up, then you can go 1-against-1. You can play with the line player. You can make a cross. But if you come into senior handball as a backcourt player without a threat from 9 meters, then it can be very hard to work with the line or to make a cross or go 1-against-1, because the defenders, they will stay a little lower on you, and it will be harder for you to get success. Then the goal creator, as a coach and as a coach working with talent development, is also aware of the bias and the power relations. I mentioned earlier that we as coaches working with talent development, we have a huge power on who will succeed, who will not succeed, because we pick the players. And we need to be aware that if we pick the same players all the time, then what will motivate the other players? Maybe we have to switch more, and we also have to have a relation to the players so that they trust us and they want to work with us, because we need to give away our knowledge. What I think is interesting if you work with these terms, it is, are you a goal digger or are you a goal creator? What are you as an individual coach? How do you work? Are you aware of how you work? What is the tradition or the policy in your club? Maybe at the school where you work with handball, or even in your federation when you pick out players for the youth national teams. Are you working as goal diggers, going for the players that are best right now? Or are you also giving a chance for the players who are later matured, who have played handball for a shorter time, in order to give them a chance to go into the big stage? And if you combine these things, maybe you also have a chance to have more handball players growing into senior handball players. And I think that's the dream for all of us, to have hard competition and many players playing handball when they go into their senior years. And the risk for goal diggers is that they demotivate a lot of players by not giving them a chance to show what they got. Blind spots, the eye for talent. For me, I think it's important to have experience. I also believe that when you have been working with talent development, identification and selection for many years, then you have an eye for talent. You can start seeing some patterns of special kind of players who look like somebody or someone you have seen earlier. But even though I have worked with this for 20-25 years and also worked with some of the best players in the world, I still are very much aware of my blind spots. And what I would like you to do is to close your eyes and think of the perfect handball player. And what do you see? I can't give you all day, but you can have 5-10 seconds more. I think that what you see tells a lot about your handball philosophy, but it also tells you a lot about what players you give most chances, or the players that you like to see in your team. Some of the biases, some of the things that you could be caught by or go into a trap, and I can honestly say I have done that many times, even though I try to be aware of it, is that we can have a bias from relations. You can't separate yourself from the player that you identify. When you go into to see a handball match and you are looking for new talents, then of course you see how do they work, how do they react, how do they behave, how do they move, how do they show themselves. And in that relation, you could maybe say that you are more fond of some type of persons than other types of persons. But we need to give all the types a good chance. You could also have a matureness bias, the relative age effect, that it could be very hard to see the difference between an early matured player making a very good performance because he's stronger than the others right now, and maybe then pick him or her, instead of some of the players that are later matured, but might have a larger potential because they haven't maybe gone into puberty yet, or haven't had their total height yet. So we also need to be aware of that. And then also, and I have the same, again, I just have to be honest, the narrative bias. You could like the humble one instead of the one coming showing off. You could like the hardworking one, or you could like the gifted one. I think it's so important when we go into identification of talents, and maybe even more important, when we go into selection, that we as coaches and in our coaching staff and teams are aware of these biases, because we all have blind spots, and we need to stay humble about that, and also try to ask other coaches, what do you see? Am I being blind here, or is he good? Could he become good? So maybe try to be aware of these things. As I mentioned, these things comes from a Danish book that came last year, and it has just been translated into English, Talent Identification, and you have the possibility to buy it if you want to learn more about these thoughts and this terminology into working with talent identification. It has examples from football, but also from handball, which is quite rare, that because there aren't that many books about handball. To be more concrete, when we talk about players in this age group, and they are teenagers from maybe 14 to 19 years old, what do I look at now with the experience I have? And maybe you will look at something different, and that's all right. This is just to try to get you to understand how I work and how I have been developing the last 20-25 years, working with a lot of players. I, of course, look at the performance. I see how they work right now, how good they are right now. But I also try to be very aware of that the younger they get, the less important the performance is. When I see a player at 19 who is just around becoming a senior player, then of course I look more into the performance. But when they are 14 years old, the performance doesn't mean that much to me, because I know they have so many years to develop, both mentally, physically, and handball-like. So how important should it really be when we pick the players in these age groups? I also look into, why do they shine? Are they good because they have a good technique, or are they good because they have a good physique? I think that players who can shine in these years because of their technique is very important to look at them, especially if they are not that long in their physical development, because if they have had the opportunity to work a lot with their technique and maybe then mature later and get very strong, then they have the whole package. I've never seen handball players with a physique that can just shine from everybody else. I see that a lot of the players who shine from physique when they are 14, 15, 16 years old, it's not because they are big talents. They are just stronger, and they win 1-against-1 in both ends, not because they have good moves, just because they are heavier and they are stronger. And I will always be quite aware of these players, because I need to see them work with players on their own size to find out what will they do then. Then I try to look into potential. And what is that? For me, it's to look at the player's history. At the camp here in Norway right now, we have players that are 15, 16, and 17 years old. Some of them have played handball for 10 years, and some of them has played for 2 or 3 years. And of course, I had to look into that to see how far are they in their development. Some of them have had very good environment, are born into a very good club, and really had the advantage of very good coaches from an early age. And then, of course, if they have been practicing more than the others, they should be better than the others right now. But it's not the same that they will be the best in the end. Maybe some of the others would catch up to them if we give them the chance. The physical development, the relative age effect, I have been there many times, but it is so important to understand if you look at a boy who's 14 years old, he could physically be developed like, of course, a 14-year-old, but also as he was 11 years old or 18 years old. So we need to be aware of how far are they in their physical development. Sorry. And the last thing for potential is, are they players, are they able to adapt and understand information from the coaches? We have a high-speed game with a lot of information, with a lot of different tactics. And if you have a timeout and there are only few seconds left, you need, as a player, to be able to adapt and understand a lot of information in a very short amount of time. So for me, even though I work more strategically now, it's important for me to go on the floor, stay with the players, talk to the players in the different exercises to try to find out, do they understand the game? Because it means a lot for their potential. If they are able to understand the game, if they are able to navigate in our corrections, they can become very, very good. The next thing here is a lot of figures. I've been digging very deep into some figures from some of this summer's events, European Open, IHF Under-19 World Championship, and Under-21 World Championship. And I will try to make you understand what I've been looking at. Here you see on your left side the top 10 from European Open in Sweden in the beginning of July, where 20 countries were competing. On left, you see that Spain won the final against France. On your right, I have tried to look at the different teams' age to see, is it the oldest teams that wins the tournaments, or is it the youngest team? But I think most important when we have seen these slides is, how do the different countries work with relative age effect? Because the new generation here, 06, 07, they will work together for the next 5-6 years. And I think it's important that we give equal chances for the 06 and 07 players, even though the 07 players, they are up until 2 years younger than the players born in 2006. So here we see that Spain won the tournament, but they were only number 8 in having the oldest team. Sweden had the oldest team with 16 players born in 2006. Could be because they have not started to work with the generation 2007 yet, but not only having 16 players, but also a lot of players born in January, February, and March, and so on. Because relative age is not only if you were born in 2006 and 2007, it's also if you were born in the beginning of the year or in the end of the year. So Sweden became number 3 with the oldest team. Croatia also had 16 players born in 2006. And they were number 6. So you can see down there that a lot of the teams, they had more players from 2006 and 2007. And it's not to say that Norway are doing the right thing, that I have Norway here, because Norway was number 14, but they have almost the youngest team. It's just that we had two different teams working in European Open and IHF, and we had a lot of or 9 players born in 2007 for this tournament. But when we go to IHF in Maribor in Slovenia, where you can also see there were 92 players born 2006 and only 27 2007, we had from Norway 12 players born in 2006, because we were quite sure that the competition in Slovenia would be tougher than in European Open. But we also wanted to give at least 12 players born in 2007 the chance to have experience internationally. But here you see that that Germany won, and they were not the oldest team. They were old, many players from 2006. But here you can see that that there are a lot of players from the oldest generation, and it will be interesting to see the next years if this continues, or more players from 2007 will get a chance on the national team. If I go further to the World Championship in Croatia for under 19 teams, there was, when you look at the amount of players, also a huge majority of players born 2004 compared to 2005. Spain won the final against Denmark, and but they were not the oldest teams. Denmark was number 7. They were equal, 8 players from 2004 and 2005. Spain had a majority of players born 2004, but still 5 players from 2005. Here you also see that Croatia has one of the oldest teams. Egypt also had a quite old team. Norway here became number 7, and it's quite balanced with the age of the team. And here is the last one, and maybe the one that is most interesting, because we can even see that when they are grown up, they are 21 years old, and they are adults. They are playing senior handball. You can still see that 115 players from these teams were born in 2002 and only 50 in 2003. And you can, on your own, look down there, 15, 14, 13, 10, 11, players, 2002, 3, 4, 6, for example, players 2003. But does this mean that that we only develop on every second year? I think that's quite important when we look into the federations, that all federations are aware of giving also a chance to become a world-class player, even though you in the beginning are born in 2003, 2005, 2007. How do we create pathways that give equal chances? Not that that sport is fair, but in order to have more talents, to have more senior players, to have more competition of coming into the men's team when they are seniors. I think we have a huge potential in worldwide handball to look into these figures and trying not only to look at the result right now, working with the oldest players who could be the best players right now, but also being aware of giving a fast track or way to work with the younger players. This is some of the things that we try to implement in Norway, and we started here working very focused on that the last 1.5 years, and I will try to give you an insight of how we use these figures in order to try to develop as many players as we can. Because in Norway, on men's side, we are aware of that we have a strong men's team, but we also have a quite small limit of world-class players, which means that we are very vulnerable if players are getting injured. So the plan number one is how can we make more world-class players within the next 5-10 years. And some of the things that we would like to do is to prevent the traps I've just showed you. It's important for us that we look at one trap, and that trap is club team. When a national team becomes a club team, we need to give new players a chance, even though that some players have been in Croatia this summer or been in Maribor. Then it's not saying that because they know each other better right now that they should have a chance next time. We need to switch players. We also need to give an equal chance for players born both in 2006 and 2007. And we have to give an equal chance to develop and get international experience when they are born in January and December. But these are really huge traps if you are not aware of it. This summer, we had some concrete actions trying to prevent this. We had two different teams in European Open in Sweden and in IHF in Maribor. And we also had different coaches. This means that we gave 32 players international experience this summer. I'm quite sure that we could make a better result if we had used the same players and had used European Open as a warm-up tournament to IHF. But this is not important for us when they are 16 years old. It's not important. Maybe we could have become number 3 or 4, but it's more important to us to give 32 players international experience that they can come back with, make them wiser in their own development, but maybe also they could have an influence on their clubs and talk to their teammates who might have the chance next year. And the idea of different coaches is that there are a difference between national handball in Norway and international handball. And if we in the future should be better to pick out the right players and identify the right players, then we are quite sure that it's important that a lot of coaches comes out and have the sense of what is international handball. It also motivate the coaches, I hope. We should have 12 players born in 2007. The coaches were told you need to pick 12 players, no matter what. Then in Croatia, there were 12 new players from under 18 European Championships in Montenegro last year, and up until now, only 4 players in Croatia was also in Montenegro. The idea is the same: try to give a lot of players in this age group the chance to feel international handball on their own body, but also physically and mentally helping them to understand how tough it is to play a championship. And it's even tougher when you become a senior, because there are more pressure from outside, more spectators. It's a longer tournaments, there are more media, and we need to help them understand that. Some other concrete actions in our strategy. We have decided that nobody should play all 4 youth championships. In Norway, on the female side, they have had this strategy for some years, and now we have implemented also on the male side. It's there are many reasons, but then we can prevent that the national team becomes a club team where we pick the same players because they know the playing style and the concept. We think it's important to give new players a chance. It will motivate them and they will learn a lot by playing a championship. But also we think it's very important that the players 1 or 2 years can stay at home at the summer, have vacation, work physically, and stay in the club for July and August to have a chance to fit into a new team, or when you become senior, have a chance to steal some court time, because it's important for the players' development to have court time when you become a senior. We need to be aware that handball players can have a very long career, and it's important that we don't burn out the players before it becomes important. We have decided only to defend 6-0 half of the time outside of the championships. Norway, Scandinavia in general is a 6-0 geographical area, but we think it's important for the players also to learn other ways of defending. So even though it could cost a little on the results, we have to force the coaches and the players to defend in other ways. It's more important that they learn something they can use later on, that they win the matches. But we like to win. We have no substitution between attack and defense before the under 20 national team. So the coaching staff in Croatia this summer, they were not allowed to change from attack to defense, even though it could make the team stronger. We have to send a strong signal to the players that because of the fast throw-off, we need more players that have competences in both attack and defense. And the best way of showing it and underlining that we really mean it is by doing it. It's the same with 7 against 6. We don't practice it. 7 against 6, you can have a lot of opinions about that. I'm, to be honest, very negative, but now it's there. And in senior handball, you do everything to win the games. But in developing handball players, I think it's much better to play 6 against 6. And that's why we don't use it when they are at under 18 and under 19. So if you should meet Norway in under 18 and under 19 youth national teams for men, don't be afraid of 7 against 6. We won't do it. When we have camps like the one we have in Norway right now with 2006 and 2007, we have no 6 against 6 practice on half a court, no tactically practice. When we are very eager to fill the players up with individual competences. So in this camp, we work a lot 1 against 1, 2 against 1, 3 against 2, 4 against 3, 3 against 3, in order to give them as many repetitions of the basic things in handball. Then we can go working 6 against 6 when we have matches, but we really want to show them that it's the individual competences that will show us the way when they become seniors. You can play all the things you want in senior handball, but if you are not able to shoot, go 1 against 1, work 2 against 2 with a line player, you don't have a chance. So that's what we practice. And then we only practice with ball 1 time a day, try to prevent shoulder injuries, taking care of the players, showing the clubs that they can rely on us as a federation. They can send the players to us without being afraid of getting injured players back. Then the way we look into the future, when we try to identify the players, we look at the draw principle. I have talked about that a little earlier. I think it was in June. But when you see the picture here, you have to imagine that on your left, you have four different boxes going down. You could say these are left wings. Then we need to develop different types of left wings. We have right now Sebastian Barthold, Alexander Bruns, August Baskar, and other good left wings. But right now we would like, but we are missing a left wing that are able to defend number 2. So right now we are really looking into identifying left wings that are able to defend into the court, maybe making it easier to have a playmaker in the defense who is very good in attack, who is very good at the fast breaks. The same on the other side, and maybe on the line player, looking at both line players that are able to block and line players that are able to move into the open spaces. The idea is to give as the men's team coach as many opportunities tactically in the future, because what will be the next rule change, we don't know, but we need to have as many cards on our hand when the next rule change comes. So we need to have different types on different positions. But still, we have to be aware of the physical demands in men's handball right now. And I am, as many other these years, very fascinated on the smaller players with a high speed in their game, because it's very fascinating to look at the things they can do, both with a clever head and fast feet. But we still need to be aware that physics means a lot. And I have tried to compare the height on position on top 4 teams at the European Championships in 2016, the Olympic Games in 2016, and the World Cup in 2017. They are the blue figures that you see. And then I can see that I haven't translated. So fløje, that is Danish, and it's wing players. So there you can see the blue are from 2016, 2017. If we go up to this time, 2021 and 22, you can see that the wingers are getting higher. You can see that there are 9 wing players on top 4 teams in 2021 and 2022 that are between 190 and 194. There were only 4 7 years ago. So maybe the wingers are getting higher. Maybe it's because the line player, the pivot, has been moving out there. So we need to have stronger, higher defenders on our wings. Strege, that's also Danish. I really, I'm sorry that I haven't translated this. This is Strege, that is line players, pivot players, and it's the same in 2016 as in 2022. On the top 4 teams, we don't find line players under 190. When we look at bagspillere, that is backcourt players, we can see that the huge amount of players, they are over 190. We can also see that the backcourt players on top 4 teams under 185, they are gone the last 5-6 years. And when we look at målmænd, you also learn some Danish right now, and that's goalkeepers. And you can see that there are goalkeepers under 190, but most of them are also under are over 190 centimeters. So we need to develop different types for different playing styles into our different cultures. But we need to be aware that the physical demands in men's handball is still very, very high. And especially in defense, it's important to have a lot of physics and a lot of height. Then, as I promised to try to keep you motivated for all this talk, I have a few exercises on something that we try to work with the Norwegian players in the age group here, 15, 16, 17 years old. This is a lot about choosing right in different situations. But I would try to show you, and I would try to talk about what is important in the different exercises. This is the first one. Yeah, it's 3 against 2, and you have players changing position. Here you have the backcourt player going in, and then you work 3 against 2. So you need to run into the ball, and then you need to decide, what do I have to do in the different situations. You can work with it in many different ways. Also here, 4 against 3. but the important things in these exercises is that the players, they run into the ball. It's important that they run into the space. And then when they are one man up, it's so important that they choose when they have seen what the defender will do. If the defender stay down, shoot. If the defender goes up, then you can try to choose to play to the line player or play to the winger. But it's so important in these situations that we teach the players to look at the defender and then choose. If the attacking players choose too early, you increase the risk of making the wrong choice. I try to take it one more time. Here, running in between number 1 and number 2, seeing who will come and then pass it in that direction. Here, running in, going between number 1 and 2, see who will come, passing to the line player. Still going in between number 1 and 2, the backcourt player goes inside, he can shoot, he can pass the line player or the winger. And the same here. Now we go 4 against 3. Passing it back. And then go there. And what I think is important here too, to be aware of, is to work with the pass where you move to the right and pass to the left. This means that you create room and make more space for the player who will receive the ball. I see way too much handball where the player with the ball moves to the right and passes to the right. It is very hard to do that in modern handball when number 2 and number 5 defender goes up. So we need to work more wide, and we need to be able to work between number 1 and number 2. Yes. Here is the next type of exercise. 3 against 2. 1 line player and 2 backcourt players. I decide who will have the ball. They only have 1 pass. So the one bouncing the ball needs to be aware, can I shoot? Can I pass the line player? Or can I pass to the other one? We take it once more, I hope. Yeah. So they have to be afraid, see what the defender does, and then pass the ball. This can also be used when the players are 11, 12, 13 years old. You can do it 2 against 1. So you can work in different ways. Here they are 3 against 2 without the line player, and they have 2 passes. Look, the player is going to the left, taking one of the defenders up. When he comes, he creates a room for the other one who will have the ball. Sorry. It comes next time. So the players, they have to think when they receive the ball, but also when they don't receive the ball. Here it's 4 against 3. And the little bald coach, who is me, will pass it to the line player. And then they have 2 passes. Here they only use 1. But trying to make them choose right under pressure and in different situations. Here it's about speed. And one of the things that we work a lot on these years is the ability to pass under physical pressure. I will show you. Go in, pass, and choose. The players have to understand that you have an advantage if you come to speed. They go directly to the goal into the spaces and try to create space for the others. Take this once more. Go directly to the goal. And look at the right back. He's not going to his right, he's going to his left. It gives a shorter pass, an easier pass, but it also creates space to his right. So that's a clever player. Here is one more. Working in two sides at the same time. The principle is the same. He needs to work 1 against 1, using his speed to either go 3 against 2 on his right, or he's able to pass it to his left, where there is a left back that you can't see right now, and a left wing, and then the right winger in the defense should go up and try to steal the ball. Here it comes, he passes in the other direction. Working a little like we do right now when number 2 and number 5 defender goes up and try to catch us. The last example is a good example to go away from the defender and being able to pass in the opposite direction. Also look at how the tradition is to work with a high arm, so that you open not only to pass it to the right, but to the left. It's much harder when you have the ball when down. So you need to have your arm up here in order to be able to work with both short and long passes and in many directions. That's it. Sorry, that's it for me, trying to put you through some different things about talent sighting and what we should be aware of when we have a lot of impact on young players who will do anything to become the world's best, and we have the chance to hopefully help them. And then in the end, a little exercises to show how we work right now with individual competences. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Claus. Now it's the time for the Q&A session. One question in regards with Norway, because it's a country that wins medals, wins trophies, both at men and in the women's competitions. How difficult is it to balance the need to win or the desire to win with giving some rest to the players and not having them in multiple tournaments and so on? How difficult is it to keep this balance?
It's not difficult if you have a clear strategy. Then you have a policy on that subject, and now we have just written down that nobody plays all 4 tournaments. It means when we are hiring youth national coaches, they know that they are measured not on medals, but on development of individual players that are able to go into the men's team. This doesn't mean that we don't want to win. We go on the court every time to try to win, but it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is to find pathways for players who can go into the men's team. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the best male players are above 30 years old. So we need to take care of them when they are teenagers. We need to give them a normal life. We need to give them a chance to do other stuff than handball in order to keep them motivated for a long career. So, and above that, it's really my experience as I mentioned sometimes before, that we cannot see who will become the best. A lot of the best Danish players that I have worked with didn't play under 18 European Championships. It could be Emil Jacobsen, it could be Mathias Gissel, it could be Mads Mensa, Michael Damgaard, and other players. It is, if you try to give a lot of players the chance, you will be surprised how many players that will shine when you cut the biggest tree in the forest, because then the sun would make them grow.
Can you elaborate also on the decision? There is a question here on not playing 7-on-6 until age 20.
Yeah, for us, 7-against-6 is only a tactical weapon, and tactical weapon is in our philosophy something you do in senior handball, where the most important thing is to win. In youth handball, for us, the main thing is to develop their individual competences, and we think they get more repetitions of going 1-against-1, working 2-against-2 with a line player, getting the wingers to run into the court if we are playing 6-against-6. 7-against-6, the wingers have to stay in the corner. They don't learn to go inside. It could be very hard for the line players to move. They have to stay in the same place. So we simply don't believe that 7-against-6 is good for developing excellent handball players, to be honest. And if we want to work with a player more in attack in order to learn them or to teach them to choose right, then we work 4-against-3, 3-against-2, 2-against-1, as I just showed in the exercises.
Yes. You talked about developing players. How to develop a player which is not playing necessarily for the team rather than himself? What can you do? Because if he has a talent, then this needs to be nurtured, right? So how do you develop such a player? How do you make him or her play for the team?
First of all, I think that these players are necessary for the team when they become seniors, because we need to have players with a winner's mindset. But a winner's mindset is not the same of being egoistic. So some of the best players, they are brought up to be the one who is decisive in the game. But I think the most important tool, if you have players working on their own, that is to switch them. But I see that quite rare, that some of the individual youth players, if they are good enough, they are allowed to work like egoistic players. But you have to pick them out in order to show them that this is a team sport. No matter how good they are, pick them out. That the only thing they want is court time. So we have to take the court time away from them, not to punish them, but to help them. Because if they go from youth to senior being too egoistic, then the the adult players, they won't work with them, and then they don't have a chance. So we need to find the balance between making them work to be able to go 1-against-1 or be decisive in the games, but we also need to control them in order to understand that it's a team sport. I hope that was a all right answer.
Yeah, we understood, of course.
Okay.
About the defense also, the 6-0 defense and not changing players between attack and defense.
Yeah.
How important is this? And can it be done in all countries, or do you need specific players who have a special skill set for this to thrive?
I think it can be done everywhere. And to be honest, I was surprised this summer seeing the tournaments that so many countries are still switching from attack to defense in such early age category, because it is so obvious to see these years that we can only change maybe one, sometimes two, from attack to defense. So every country who want success on senior level are, in my opinion, forced to work like this, to motivate more players to be good in defense, because a lot of the young players are better in attack in defense. But I think, again, we have a issue with 7 against 6, because some of the countries who are not as tall as Scandinavians, they have really have given us a hard time 10 years ago, playing against Japan, for example, South Korea, going 3 against 3, 3-2-1, and it was hard for us. But now we can go in 7 against 6, and they have to go down. So there are something here that is tough for the countries who don't have the same physique as we have in Scandinavia. It has become harder to make surprises with smaller players, and I really feel sorry for that.
Claus, thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you very much for your answers. They were excellent. We hope we've learned a lot today. Tomorrow, the IHF Youth Coaches Education Weeks continue with 2 webinars, one at 13 CEST, one at 15 CEST. So until then, have a nice day. Goodbye.